rolling Zac Meter RR20 system offers an elegant profile that's designed for efficient and smooth operation. Now, one of the key features is that it fits on a 2.5-inch dustboard, making it a perfect solution for those narrow mounting depths. And the name, RR20, it makes it easy to remember that the system can hold up to 20 pounds and support the shade with a maximum size of 96 inches wide and 108 inches long. We will also be using the chain shield. Now, the chain shield ensures compliancy with the child safety standards, and it also means no worrying about those wall-mounted chains. I find that having the right materials on hand help ensure a smooth and efficient assembly process. So here are the components that you will need. First, you would need the RR20 clutch, 2 of the Skyline LX brackets, a 1.5-inch pin-in, and this is a standard pin-in, but if your shade is a little bit heavier or larger, you might want to consider using the 1.5-inch heavy-duty pin-in. A retaining spear, the 1.5-inch aluminum tube, dust board with a 1.5-inch projection, and then you will need the aluminum tube clips, and these are 1.5-inch. Now you will see that on the back of my shade, I have used the clear forever rings. To make sure that my shade is compliant, I have used the ring locks. And to secure the end of my cords, I have used a level lock. You'll have orbs on hand to help me balance my shade or my shade cord, pair of scissors, a lighter, 4 screws to attach my brackets onto the dustboard, and a drill with the hex head bit for my hex head screws. Now, I prefer using the hex head screws because that's what my installer uses. And if he needs to make adjustments on site, it really makes it much easier if I'm using the same kind of screws and bits that he does. All right. Now, we will also be using the chain shield. Rolling Zac Meter chain shield was designed to create a simple and effective solution for any existing manual shading system. Now, the shield encases the chain, leaving 8 inches exposed to easily control the shade. Now, using the chain system ensures compliance with child safety standards. The chain shields are available in pre-cut, pre-drilled lengths to accommodate the different size shades. Today, we will assemble a chain shield using a 24-inch chain, 8-inch chain shield, and you will see that it has a plastic sleeve. This is to protect the shield, and it will be removed at the time of installation. Now, additional components needed to complete the assembly are 1 wheel, 2 funnels, 2 pair of binding posts, and a chain shield jig. First thing we're going to do is take the funnel and place it on the end of the jig. The wheel go right on top. I'm going to take the chain and insert it into the chain shield. And place it on the other post. Secure the chain right around the wheel. Other funnel and place it on top. Guide the chain shield to the end of the funnel pieces. Remove them from the jig and sliding the chain shield up to where the holes align with the funnels. Now, to complete the assembly, take a binding post and place it through the hole, and you can turn it over and then take the second binding post and slide right on top. Okay. You can use your mallet to secure them. I'm going to slide the plastic out of my way, and then I'm going to make sure that the chain is not twisted on the inside, and take the other female post and place it on there, and take the male and push it down with my thumb, and then secure it with the mallet. And there you have it. You can see how easy, quick it is to assemble the chain shield. Now that you have assembled your chain shield, I'm going to demonstrate how you will take the chain shield and attach it to your clutch. I'm going to take the end of the chain that is coming from the top of your shield, make it a little pitch, and I'm going to insert it through the guide on the side and the bottom of your clutch. We'll wrap it around the unit. Now, I find it helpful to lay this on the table. And all I have to do is to take one side of the chain and place it in 1/4 of the clutch. Okay. The other side here just kind of is loose, and it doesn't have to go into the grooves just yet. So I place my chain in about 2 of the little cogs in the wheel, and then I just begin with my right hand and begin pulling the chain around. You have to stop for a second and then pull the outer part of the clutch and keep pulling the chain around. Okay. Yes. And there you go. The chain is secure inside of the clutch. Now I'll guide you through the steps on how to assemble your system and how to securely fasten it to your dashboard. As you see here, I have already attached my finished shade to the dashboard. I'm not going to go through the steps on how to attach the shade to the dashboard because there are many different methods out there. So I'm going to defer to you to choose the method that you are most comfortable with. I'm going to go ahead and I will attach my brackets to the underside of my dashboard. I've already attached one just to get a little head start, and I have pre-drilled the opposite side. I'll place my bracket on the end. I already have a screw on the end. And in just a moment, I'm going to talk about the placement of my brackets. Now, my preference is to place my brackets about 1/8 of an inch in on each side. Now, I do this because it keeps the brackets from impeding with my fabric tabs on the side, and it also helps if we have a little, it also helps give me a little bit of wiggle room should this shade be an inside mount. Sometimes the installer needs to make a little tapping of it. to get it in there, and I don't want my bracket right there on the end that could impede with the install. Before I begin the assembly, I want to talk about the deduction that I take for my tube. For me personally, I always take 1 1/4 inch, and that does accommodate for me bringing my brackets in at 1/8 of an inch on each side. So again, I will cut this tube a 1 1/4 inches smaller than the finished width of the board. One more thing that I need to do before I begin the assembly process, and that is to take the retainer and place it down into the clutch. Now this retainer will keep the system on the brackets during transportation from your workroom to the client space. So let me show you how it's done. I'm going to take the retainer, and the pointy end's going to go out, and the 2 little feet will slide down into the grooves, down into the clutch. And I'm going to slide it here. I'm going to turn it over, make sure that I have it right. I believe I do. And you push it down, so you'll hear that little snap. And if you turn it over, you can see that those 2 little feet are in place. Okay, now the clutch is ready to go inside of the tube. And if you look on the side, you will see the little notch in the tube, and you will take the clutch. You also see that there is the grooves on the side of the clutch, and you will line them like that and slide your clutch in. And then turn this tube around and take your pin in, and again you'll find the little groove, and then you will take the groove of your pin in, align it, and push it in. Now we can attach the system to the brackets. Attach the pin in first, push it, and slide it down. And it will slide right into place. And you will see where the retainer in comes through the hole of the brackets. Like I said, keeping it securely in there during the transportation. Before we get started, it's important to note that whether you have a manual operated or motorized shade, the steps that you will be taking will remain the same. To ensure that the shade is compliant with child safety standards, I have sewn the forever rings on the back of the shade 8 inches apart, and we'll be stringing it using ring locks. Let's begin by marking the tube for the placement of your C-clips. Now to do this, I find that it's handy if I take my system and align it side to side, and just where I can see the top of the first row of rings. And I will take my ruler, and I'm going to align my ruler at the center of my ring. And I'm going to make a mark on my tube 2 inches in, because we want to offset our clips 2 inches in from our row of rings. And I'll come to the other side, and I will do the same. Okay, I can see the center of my ring at 2 inch mark, and I'll make a pencil mark right there. Now, this shade only has 2 rows of rings, but if you had additional rows of rings, then you would do the same. You will offset them either to the right of that row or to the left of that row 2 inches. Next, you're going to cut your shade cord. I cut the finished length of my shade plus 10 inches. Then we will insert it into the hole on the top of the clip. Now, this is my personal preference to go through both of the holes. Some may only go through one. I want to make sure that my cord are secure, and I will do anything I can to avoid any callback. So I've inserted into one of the holes and down the other. Then now I'm going to tie a knot large enough to keep it from coming through those holes. And so I'll give it a little pull. So that's nice and secure. And I'll do the same to the other. Now, top and down the edge, on the other side, I should say. And again, just do some little knots. Securing the cord so it does not pull through the holes. Next step I'm going to take is I'm going to go to the end of the cord, and with the lighter, I want to seal the end. So carefully, I will just touch it and real quick pull on the end. Be careful not to singe your fingers. We do this so that the cord will slide through the hole in the ring lock. Let's now attach the C-clips to our tube. Now, when placing your C-clip on the tube, you want to make sure that the cord is coming out of the C-clip in the direction of the row of rings. Okay? Now you're just going to take the C-clip, and I always find one of the grooves on the tube and align the edge of the C-clip along that groove like this. And here's my 2-inch mark, and I just snap it down. Okay, now we'll do the same on the other side, making sure that my cord is coming out on the left-hand side, and I will find that same groove along that 2-inch mark, slide this down and snap it into place. Then take my cord and run it under the tube. And doing the same on the opposite side. I've turned the shade so that you have a better view of how I string the shade. Now for every ring, you will have a ring lock. I've placed them here in the row. And for the bottom of the shade, you will need an additional ring lock, a level lock, and then, like I said, I will be using the orbs just to help me balance and align my shade. So we'll take the ring lock and place it on top of the ring, and then take our cord and slide it through the little hole in the ring lock. Same. This is a pretty quick process, and it really does go smoother when you have singed the end of that cord. Now this is the last ring in this row, and I will now pull my cord all the way through, and I will take my level lock and the level lock, you can see, has a little cutout. I'm going to take that cutout and place it in the little groove of the ring lock. Take my cord and run it through the hole. Making sure that it goes through the hole of the level lock. Okay, so now it's loose on the bottom, but this is where the orb comes in. I'm going to take and insert my orb into the bottom. And I'm going to slide it right up, maybe about 1/4 of an inch from the last ring lock. Now I will be using the orb to help me make the final adjustments on the shade. Once the final adjustments are made, then I will secure that row of rings by locking in the level lock and removing the orb. Now I will finish stringing the shade. Attaching, placing the level lock into the ring lock, sometimes it does pop out, cord through, and attaching the orb. Now that I have strung my shade, I will place it onto the valet to make my final adjustments and lock in the level locks. Placing your shade on a valet or maybe even L brackets that are extended from the ceiling will allow you to, number one, make sure that your system is operating correctly. And it will also allow you to make any final adjustments to ensure that your shade is properly aligned. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I have 17.5 on this side, and I have 17.5 on this side. Now, should I need to make any adjustments, that's where the orbs come in. I can easily slide my orbs up or down to make sure that my shade is aligned. This one happens to be in alignment, so now all I have to do is lock those level locks in, remove the orb, and tie some knots to secure. And I will show you a close-up on that. Now, I normally do this step while my shade is up on the valet, but in order for me to give you a close-up, I need to put it onto the table. Now, this is my last row of rings, and here I have my level lock and my orb. So I'm going to pull it out just so you can see it better. Okay, now I need to make sure that my level lock in the ring lock is up against my orb. Okay, and you can see the level lock is kind of loose inside. If you look closely, you will see that the level lock, the flat side of the level lock, is facing up. Now here is a little close-up view of a level lock, and you will see that it has a dome side and it has a flat side. And as I mentioned, the flat side is facing up. We are now going to grab that level lock and we're going to turn it. And I can go ahead and turn it, let go of the ring lock and turn it. Okay. And now the dome side is facing up. So we now need to snap it in place. So I'm going to push it with my fingers, keeping it up against the orb. And like I said, when it's on the valet, it's easier. And you're going to push it to hear a little snap. Okay. And now you will see if I grab hold of it, let me grab hold of the string here, that it no longer moves. It is locked into place. Now I can take and remove my orb. And I'm going to take and do a little double knot down at the bottom. And some of you may not find it necessary to make this little knot. But again, I want to make sure that my shade is secure in every way that I can so that I don't have any callbacks. I'm doing a double knot because a double knot will not fit through should the level lock come undone, which I doubt that it will, the cord will not come through the hole in the ring lock. Again, this is just a personal preference, and you may not find it necessary. There you go. Before we get started, it's important to note that the steps that you will be taking are the same whether you're using the RR10 or the RR20 manual or motorized system. To ensure that the shade is compliant with child safety standards, I have sewn the forever rings on the back of the shade 8 inches apart, and we'll be stringing it using ring locks. Let's begin by marking the tube for the placement of your C-clips. Now, to do this, I find that it's handy if I take my system and align it side to side, and just where I can see the top of the first row of rings. And I would take my ruler, and I'm going to align my ruler like at the center of my ring. And I'm going to make a mark on my tube 2 inches in, because we want to offset our clips 2 inches in from our row of rings. And I'll come to the other side, and I will do the same. Okay, I can see the center of my ring, my 2 inch mark, and I'll make a pencil mark right there. Now, this shade only has 2 rows of rings, but if you had additional rows of rings, then you would do the same. You will offset them either to the right of that row or to the left of that row 2 inches. Next, you're going to cut your shade cord. I cut mine the finished length of my shade plus 10 inches. Then we will insert it into the hole on the top of the clip. Now, this is my personal preference to go through both of the holes. Some may only go through one. I want to make sure that my cord are secure, and I will do anything I can to avoid any callback. So I've inserted into one of the holes and down the other. Then now I'm going to tie a knot large enough to keep it from coming through those holes. Okay, so I'll give it a little pull so that's nice and secure. And I'll do the same to the other. Out the top and down the edge, and the other side, I should say. And again, just do some knots. Securing the cord so it does not pull through the holes. Next step I'm going to take is I am going to go to the end of the cord, and with the lighter, I want to seal the end. So carefully, I will just touch it and real quick pull on the end. Be careful not to singe your fingers. We do this so that the cord will slide through the hole in the ring lock. Let's now attach the C-clips to our tube. Now, while placing your C-clip on the tube, you want to make sure that the cord is coming out of the C-clip in the direction of the row of rings. Okay, now you're just going to take the C-clip, and I always find one of the grooves on the tube. Now line the edge of the C-clip along that groove like this, and here's my 2 inch mark, and I just snap it down. Okay, now we'll do the same on the other side, making sure that my cord is coming out on the left hand side, and I will find that same groove along that 2-inch mark, slide this down and snap it into place. Then take my cord and run it under the tube. And doing the same on the opposite side. Now that your C-clips are attached to your tubes along with your cord, you can continue on and finish stringing your shade. Now that your shade is complete, it's ready to install. Now I have just a couple of tips for you. For an outside mounted shade, the most common and reliable way to install the shade is by using L brackets. But you want to ensure that your L brackets are level and positioned in a way that do not interfere with your brackets on the underside of the dustboard. You're simply going to secure your L bracket on the wall and then place your shade on top and then secure that with new screws. Thank you for following along in this video series, and I certainly hope that you enjoy using the Rolly Zacmeta Roman shade systems for all of your Roman shade needs.